Hey there, Aubrey. How's it going today? Good to see you on video.
Yes, right? Check us out on YouTube if you're not. It's kind of fun to see the faces and all of our crazy hand gestures and expressions.
Yeah, it's true. I have a question for you.
Okay.
All right. So, Aubrey, when was the last time you had your wires crossed?
Oh man, that's a fun idiom, right? To have
Yes.
wires crossed means there's a misunderstanding. You failed to understand something.
Yeah.
And this did happen to me just a couple of days ago. I got my
Okay.
wires crossed when a neighbor sent me a photo of one of her plants. And
Uh-huh.
she said she was worried it wouldn't survive. And
Ah.
I said, it does look a little droopy. Good luck. And she texted back, does it look droopy? Oh no, I just bought it. I had misunderstood and thought that she had owned it for some time and it was struggling.
Oh no.
I really felt bad for criticizing her new plant. I was like, I called her and I'm like, I need to clarify. I'm sorry. It was over text. We didn't understand. So
Oh no.
we got our wires crossed a bit.
That's like if you go to a dinner party and you're like, "Oh, these cookies are awful. Were these store bought?" And someone next to you had bought the cookies and they were their favorite, meal to cook or bake. And
Yes, right. Just misunderstandings. It happens to all of us. It happens to native speakers and to language learners, right? If
yeah.
you are feeling solidarity here, which means you have this in common with us, you feel the same feeling, it's everyone, right? This happens to all of us.
It happens to all of us. And what I thought was interesting about this little story you shared about your neighbor is that you were really flipping between tenses here, Aubrey. I mean, did you feel that as you were moving between different tenses?
Yes,
We're
for
not sticking
sure.
with that same tense like our textbooks would have us think, right?
Exactly right. That's what we want to dive into today. You
Yeah.
can't just tell a story about the past and tell the whole thing in past simple tense.
Oh
It
my gosh,
just
so
doesn't
boring.
work. That's not what natives do. We're jumping around from one tense to another depending on what you mean and the order at which it happened, especially if you're talking about something and then something happened and then I
Yes.
didn't realize that the order is just always all crazy.
It's true. And I think our listeners, you guys know this because in your native language, I'm sure you do this too. But for some reason, when we learn a language, we try to isolate these tenses at the intermediate level. So at your level, guys, intermediate to advanced, you want to already embrace this fact. A great place to go is to listen to our group conversations, right? Our conversations in coffee program, Aubrey, is a great example of that because there are 3 or 4 voices talking and we're always going back, different tenses, future, past progressive, past perfect, everything. They're all in
Yes.
there.
That's
Yeah.
such a good point, right? And this is a very key skill to know which tense to use.
Mm-hmm.
And we say this all the time on All Ears English. The more you take in English, the more it's just going to sound right to you, which one you're going to need to use. But it
Yes.
is also really helpful to sort of pick apart a story and say, okay, which tense did they use here and why? That's super helpful just to understand.
Yeah, I've had this thought recently. I think I had this thought when I was speaking to someone and I saw myself do this. And I thought our listeners would love to know this and to work on this. I think this is one of those huge pieces. If you guys can grasp this for listening and speaking, you can move to that near native 99% fluency level. Right, Aubrey?
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yes, I love it. So where should we go from here? How are we going to, share this with our listeners?
Yes, awesome. Okay, so I think what we should do is take that little story I told,
Okay.
and we're going to kind of pick apart the different sentences and let you see which tense I was using. We're not going to dive in today on why would we choose one over the other because that, guys, grammar is complicated and it's a big discussion for each tense why we choose which one.
Okay.
But we are very soon going to dive a little more into past perfect, which I
Yeah.
used some here.
Yeah.
And so definitely follow, make sure you don't miss that episode because
Mm.
this is a very difficult tense and we're going to simplify it. We're going to make it clear why we choose
Yeah.
past perfect.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way we can show you guys all these tenses today in this episode. That's why you want to hit follow on All Ears English Podcast so that you don't miss it. We are going to try to do more grammar stuff this fall for you guys, but obviously we're going to make it fun as we always do. So you guys are going to have a good time learning these grammar tenses. Good stuff, Aubrey. All right, where do we start? Let's break down the story because it was a little fast. So let's break it down for our listeners and show us how we used these different tenses.
Perfect. Okay, so start at the beginning. I was saying I got my wires crossed last night. So we're
Mm-hmm.
starting here with the simple past. And
Yes.
that's usually what we do when we're telling a story in the past. It usually
Mm-hmm.
starts in the simple past, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
I'm wanting to set the scene. I'm letting you know this, and it's often with one thing that happened in the past, right? I got
Yeah.
my wires crossed last night.
Yeah, and I just want to mention we have done episodes. I think Aubrey, you and I did a great episode on how to set the stage for a story to make sure
Yes.
people are listening to you before you go into that story,
Oh
right?
yeah, with the hook, right? Make it
Yes.
engaging. Oh, don't miss that episode. That was a fun one.
Yeah, go back into the summer episodes, guys, and check out that episode so that you don't go into a story without making sure you have people's attention because that's embarrassing. You start telling a story and then you look around and no one's looking at you and you just kind of, curl up and feel
Yes,
embarrassed. Does
it's
that
so
ever
true.
happen to you? It doesn't.
Yeah,
It
oh,
sounds
for
like you're
sure.
a good storyteller, Aubrey.
It's
So that
still that
doesn't.
still does happen sometimes because I'm a little bit of a TMI person, which means too much information. So sometimes I'll be telling a story and then realize like I'm probably sharing personal details I shouldn't be. Should I be embarrassed? Should I be humiliated? That for sure has happened to me.
So that, but for you, does that happen in the middle of the story, like as you're about to
Yes.
share the details?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll like start and I'm like, okay, maybe this is TMI, but it's
That's
funny,
funny.
so I'm
Okay.
gonna share it.
I'm sure our listeners can relate to that. So make sure
For
you have the
sure.
stage set and what you're about to share is appropriate, right? That makes
Right.
sense. All right. So we set the stage and we use usually a simple past form.
Yeah,
Keep it
right.
simple, right?
Yeah. And then we're still using simple past here. My neighbor sent me a photo of her plant. And then this is interesting. We move into passive voice. She is worried it won't survive. So much complicated grammar to think about. And we're using all of them within a couple sentences, right?
Oh, okay. And we could also say she was worried. I would tend to say
Definitely.
she was worried it wouldn't survive. Oh, we got a few different things going on here,
Yeah, because
Aubrey.
it's interesting to think about how there are options, right? When I'm telling this
Yes.
story, and I think I even, if you go back and listen to the beginning, I think I said she was worried it wouldn't survive,
That's what I would say.
and there's options for sure, right?
Hmm.
Because if I'm describing something she told me, there are options for how I can say that. She's
Yes.
worried it wouldn't survive. She's worried it won't survive. There, yeah, right. It's we're flexible sometimes a little bit,
Right.
right?
And why would you, so we're not going to go into the nitty gritty about each of these, but why would you use she is worried it won't survive versus she was worried it wouldn't survive? A bit of the, like how current it is. Like it's almost like is worried it won't survive as you're coming out of the conversation and
Yeah.
you're
Okay.
just
So
saying
this is
in
interesting,
general.
right?
Yeah.
Because so I wrote this right after it happened, actually.
Yes.
So
So
I
it's more
wrote,
relevant.
she is worried it won't survive because she had just said this to me.
It's
But
more
now,
pertinent.
when I went to tell this story today, because it happened a few days ago,
Yes.
then it feels more natural to me to be like, oh, she was worried it wouldn't survive
I
because
think
I'm
that makes
telling about
sense.
something that happened a few days ago.
Right. So it's
Interesting.
almost like when you use that present tense, she's worried it won't survive. You're coming out of the
Yep.
telling of the story. You're saying, this is the current condition of my neighbor, and we're in this right now, guys.
Exactly.
Okay. That's really interesting for our
Interesting.
listeners here. Yeah.
Yeah. So then to continue here, I quoted myself, which is interesting. I'm like, oh, I said, it does look a little droopy. Good luck. And so past tense, I said, but then because I'm quoting myself, I'm saying what I actually said, and that's present tense. It does look a little
Okay.
droopy. Good luck.
Yes. Okay, good. So the important thing is here you're now telling the story where you're quoting yourself, right? So
Yep.
I said it does look a little droopy. Good luck. And you do want to change your voice there. Your tone of
Right? When
voice
you're
when you
quoting
quote yourself.
your intonation changes to almost to imitate yourself. That's interesting.
Yeah, and here's the big mistake, right? The moment when you were embarrassed. Does it look
Yes.
droopy? Right? She texted back, "Does it look droopy? Oh no, I just bought it." Right? Chose a droopy
Yes.
plant.
So I was accidentally criticizing her plant. Droopy means like the leaves look kind of sad, like it needs watered. And I did not mean to criticize a plant she had just bought, but I thought that's what she was saying. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, just got our wires crossed a bit.
Okay, good. And then you use the past perfect here at the end,
Yes.
right?
So here we have past perfect tense, which is a little less common in English. We don't hear it quite as often,
No. Yeah.
but when it's appropriate, you want to know how to use it, right? I
Mm-hmm.
said, I had misunderstood and thought she had owned it for some time and it
Mm-hmm.
was struggling. Oh, goodness. So we have that past perfect, I had misunderstood. And then
Yes.
past perfect, she had owned it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then we have a continuous here. It was struggling because that's something that would happen over a period of time.
Yeah.
Goodness. You
And
guys,
you
we definitely will need to do past perfect soon because
yeah.
that's a lot to get into why we use past perfect. Right? It's a little complicated. It's something that had already happened
Mm-hmm.
before something else happened in the past.
Yes.
So, so native and natural to be able to use it correctly or to know when you need it. We
Oh
will
my
definitely go
gosh.
into that in an episode very soon.
Yeah, and the key takeaway for today, guys, is just to know that you need all of these at the same
Yes.
time, right? We're not staying in a one track mindset where we're just telling this story in past tense because you end up sounding boring and not appropriate, right? It's not appropriate for the timestamps of these things. When did these things happen? What happened first? We need to know. Okay.
Exactly, right. And we actually had future there. It won't survive, right? She's worried it
Mm,
won't survive, will not survive in the future. And then we ended with the past. I felt bad for
yeah.
criticizing. Oh, goodness. There's so many tenses when we tell a story. So I think it is interesting to think about when you tell a story, don't stop and think, I need to be using the past tense, right?
Yes.
No,
I
you
love
have
it.
to be flexible, use all these different tenses.
Yeah, I mean, and again, as you said earlier, Aubrey, the key here is listening. Listen to especially back and forth dialogue between two people or storytelling podcast, true crime. What's your favorite true crime
Yes.
podcast, Aubrey? Give us
Ooh,
some names.
mine. There's a really good one called Someone Knows Something, which some true crime podcasts are especially notable because through the reporting, they've solved the crime. And this is one of those. Like,
Yes,
because the
yes.
podcaster does this
Because of the
deep dive
podcast. That's
investigation,
cool.
they've solved the crime. And that's one of those, which very cool.
That is so cool. At the podcast conference, I learned about another one, which I want to listen to. It's called Scam Goddess. And the
Ooh.
podcaster investigates different scams, worldwide scams and scams within the US with an air of humor, right? Because
Oh,
scams are ridiculous,
like the
right?
Tinder Swindler. Did you
Sure.
watch that?
I don't know
Oh,
that
it's on
one.
Netflix. There's someone who would go on Tinder and scam women and get
No.
and steal all their money.
Oh gosh,
So,
yeah. I mean, and
same
there's
kind
an
of thing.
element of ridiculousness, right, to
Yeah.
scams and the way they're put together, and the fact that people get away with it. And so she just picks this apart. She's really funny. She did a keynote talk on the stage, and she had me laughing and made me want to. So check it out, guys. It's called Scam
Yes.
Goddess.
But I know people who have been scammed. Do you,
Yeah,
Lindsay?
I do. I know people. Yeah, and it's
I
very
do
sad when it
too.
happens. It's always people that just don't deserve it. It's people that
No, they
don't deserve
never
it.
deserve it. Maybe they're a
Mhm.
little less, condescending about the world, so they're a little trusting. No
Yes.
judgment, but it's always so sad.
Little naive.
Little
We talked
naive.
about this in I think yesterday's episode about a can-do attitude, anything's possible. But the flip side of that, of course, is that we're maybe more vulnerable to people that want
Good
to take
point.
advantage of us in the world, right? So
Totally.
yeah, it's true. But the point is, guys, here, listen to different kinds of podcasts. Crime would be a great one because you spend a lot of time going back into recounting the crime, hearing stories from family members, right?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, for sure, right? And just as a really interesting takeaway, guys, this clarifies meaning and adds interest when you can be flexible with the verb tenses you're using to share a story.
Hmm.
But like you said, Lindsay, when you take in a lot of English, when you're listening to podcasts, it just starts sounding right, one or the other, because you're hearing it correct so often.
Yeah, completely. I love it. So good. So, any final words of wisdom for our listeners as they are, trying to learn this grammar? I think pick it apart one at a time when you learn it, guys, but then don't ever keep it apart beyond just learning the tense. And we're
Yeah,
going to do more episodes, like we said, on each of
totally.
these tenses, but then expect to integrate them as soon as you can, not just when you get to that super
Yes.
advanced level. Integrate them early in your learning.
Totally, just memorizing what they're called and what it was is not going to help you that much communicate. The average native speaker who hasn't studied grammar a lot will be able to tell you what sounds correct, but they probably won't be able to explain why or name the verb tenses because that's not as helpful when you're trying to communicate.
Yeah, don't get stuck in the names and, understanding why. Listen to the language, take it in and try to understand the context, right? Listen to that, what happened with that crime and understand the context of when things happened. That'll put the pieces into place for you guys. So good.
Yes, for sure.
All right,
Awesome.
Aubrey, this has been a great one, guys. Hit follow on All Ears English so you don't miss a single episode of these grammar ones coming up soon and so much more right here. Aubrey, thanks for hanging out today. You have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Lindsay. Bye.
Bye.